Next case we're going to hear is James Jones versus Kanisha Smith. Is Mr. Jones here?
Yes, I'm here.
Ms. Smith, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Will you please both come forward? Mr. Jones, you will sit on the table on your right, and Ms. Smith on the left, and we will proceed. Mr. Jones, are you ready to proceed?
Yes.
Let's have you sworn in before you testify. Put your right hand on the Bible, Mr. Jones. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, but nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right. Well, go ahead, Mr. Jones, and tell us what are your claims.
All right. I have been renting to Kanisha, and she's always late, and I've given her many chances, but at this point, she owes me September and October, so that's $2,300 in rent, $120 in late fees. I'm sure there's going to be damages to the house. Her kids are unbelievable terrors. And at this point, I know I'm going to lose money. I just want her out, and I want my money.
Anything else, Mr. Jones?
No, that's it.
Well, Ms. Smith, do you have any questions for Mr. Jones?
I've always paid my rent on time. I have all of my receipts.
Ms. Smith, I want you to ask him questions. Later on, you'll have a chance to testify.
I'm sorry. Mr. Jones, didn't I ask you to repair the roof and tell you that the electrical box almost caught on fire?
What? No. I was waiting. I told you I was waiting for a contractor to come. You said you didn't want to move out. I told you you needed to move out so I could make repairs.
Oh my goodness, you're just lying.
Ms. Smith, I'm sorry, you cannot do that. I want you only to ask questions and don't interrupt Mr. Jones when he's testifying.
I'm sorry.
So as I was saying, I called the inspector after the storm. We put a tarp over the roof so that you could stay in the house, but it takes time to get contractors.
Did you repair the electric box?
I don't know anything about the electric box.
Did you repair the roof? Didn't I ask you to reduce the September rent because I had to pay an electrician to fix the box?
I told you I didn't authorize those repairs.
It was an emergency. You didn't have to. It had to be done. I don't have any more questions for him.
Mr. Jones, do you have anything else to add?
No.
Ms. Smith, are you ready to proceed?
I am.
Well, go ahead.
I moved into a home owned by Mr. Jones April 2016. I paid a $1,000 security deposit. Back then, my rent was $1,075. Not that it's worth it, but he's increased the rent to $1,150 now. After Hurricane Florence, I started having lots of problems. The roof was leaking, and he knew that I had problems. I think he got the insurance money and didn't even fix it. They came out there and put a tarp on it. The tarp has been there since October of last year. Shortly after that, every time it rained, I had water in my kitchen, my living room, even my son's bedroom. Every time I go to pay rent, I tell him what's going on. I send him text messages and emails. The first time I reached out to him, water was ruining my furniture, and he's just never gotten back to me. February 18th, I sent him a text and an email because I was desperate for him to come and do something. I have my text messages here.
You mean in your phone?
Yes.
Ms. Smith, I prefer that you print, anybody that's going to use text messages prints them, because it takes too much time for the court to be showing the phone around. I'm going to allow it, but I want to warn you both that next time you print the text messages, you need to show Mr. Jones the phone with the text and then bring it to me.
Okay.
Well, I told you you had to move out so I could make the repairs.
Mr. Jones, again I tell you, do not testify now. All you can do is ask questions. Mr. Jones, do you have any objections to the text message that Ms. Smith
I
just
never
showed
received
you?
the text messages.
Ms. Smith, you need to show that he received the message.
The very next day, I sent him an email asking him if he'd gotten the message because there was still water coming in. He responded that he had, and he was sending a contractor over. I have a copy of my email. It has his response to it and acknowledging that he received it.
Again, Ms. Smith showed a copy of the text message or the email you said to Mr. Jones. Once you have done that, then you show it to me. Thank you, Ms. Smith. I'll keep this copy.
He never sends anyone to the house. So in March and June, I sent him emails. He never responds. In July, there was a fire. I sent him an email, let him know I had no power and there were sparks coming out of the box. I have to send emails, and I have copies of them because he never responds to my text messages or voicemails.
Ms. Smith, show Mr. Jones copies of the emails you made reference to. And then show them to me too. Thank you, Ms. Smith. I'll keep this one. Mr. Jones, do you have any objections to the emails that Ms. Smith showed you?
No.
I'm going to admit the emails. Ms. Smith, you have given me 3 copies of emails?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
I was afraid. This thing caught on fire. I had to call an electrician and pay out of pocket. I called Peters and Sons and paid them $300. I have a copy of that receipt as well.
Go ahead and show it. Where does it say Peter and Son? Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
I waited 2 days but didn't hear anything from Mr. Jones. One of those emails is dated July 21st. When I didn't hear from him, my kids and I, we had to stay at a hotel. I have my hotel receipt, which is dated July 23rd. Here's my receipt.
And again, Ms. Smith, you're going to show it to Mr. Jones. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Excuse me, that's the date there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Jones, do you have any objections to the hotel receipt Ms. Smith showed you?
Did you get my permission to hire anyone?
Mr. Jones, you will have time later on to answer the questions. Just answer my question. Do you have any objection to the receipt Ms. Smith just showed you?
No.
Ms. Smith, you need to proceed.
I couldn't wait for permission. My kids and I couldn't stay in a house where it was sparking. To this day, Mr. Jones hasn't even come back and checked on the status of the box or anything. I couldn't pay rent because I had so many expenses. I paid $300 for an electrician, $124 for a hotel, $70 in food, and $25 in gas. I'm living in a house where I can't use a living room. My son's bedroom is useless. Water has ruined everything. The house is nowhere near worth $1,150. I live in this neighborhood and I know what things go for. At best, this place is worth $400 a month. I've been overpaying by $750 a month for the last 10 months. I think Mr. Jones owes me $7,050.
Ms. Smith, do you have anything further?
I don't, Your Honor.
Mr. Jones, this is your time to ask questions to Ms. Smith.
She owes me for September and October rent.
Mr. Jones, again, you will now ask questions.
Didn't I ask you to move so that I could do the repairs?
No, you didn't.
Mr. Jones, anything further?
I don't know. She doesn't pay. I'm done.
Okay. I am ready to enter judgment. Ms. Smith, I have copies of all your receipts. And yours too, Mr. Jones? I don't see any from you here. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is determine how much rent you, Ms. Smith, owe Mr. Jones. And the court finds the following. The defects in the house, the leaking roof in 3 rooms, and the electrical problems were a threat to the safety and health of the occupants. Mr. Jones, you knew of the conditions of the roof since November 2018. Your own testimony showed that. When the house was inspected and you placed a tarp over the roof. Ms. Smith notified you of the leaking in the roof in February 2018. And she notified you of the electrical problems in the box in July. Testimony shows that she incurred damages for loss of property, hotel expenses, food, gas, and the cost of repairs for a total of $519. She offered receipts for the hotel and the repairs to the electric box. She didn't offer receipts for the food, but it's expected, and you didn't object to her statement that she spent $70 in food and $25 in gas. Ms. Smith, you did not provide any testimony about the value of the furniture you claim you lost. You also testified that the rental value of the house in the conditions it is with the defects you testified to was $400. And since you gave notice to Mr. Jones in February, I'm going to count from February, not from November. So the rent abatement or the excess rent will start in February when you gave the first notice. That is 7 months at $750. That's the testimony we have of the excess value. And that's a total of $5,250. But I'm also going to find that you failed to pay September and October rent, according to what the testimony from Mr. Jones was. But the rental value for those 2 months is $400 each month. So you owe Mr. Jones $800. And I'm going to reduce that from the amount I mentioned before. So your award of damages is an excess rent of $4,450 plus $519 for damages. That's a total of $4,969 that the court will award to you. The cost of this action is going to be taxed to you, Ms. Smith, and reduced from those damages. Possession is granted to Mr. Jones. Ms. Smith, you should not have withheld the rent. I understand your reasoning, but that's not the law. So I am granting possession to Mr. Jones because you actually owe rent for those months, although it was less. So the judgment of this court is possession for Mr. Jones and damages to you for the amount of $4,969. If you have any objections to my judgment, you can appeal, and you have 10 days to appeal.